Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Ronda Rousey and the armbar system that she used to put herself and women's combat sports on the map. So this video idea came from Phred, so thank you very much, Phred, for the comment. And in this video, we're going to start off talking about some things to consider when we're studying Ronda Rousey for jiu-jitsu purposes. Then we're going to talk about her classic entry into the armbar, and then we're going to discuss how she likes to finish from that spiderweb position, how she prefers to separate the hands and go into that finish. So let's get started. So some things to consider when studying Ronda Rousey for jiu-jitsu purposes is that in UFC, people have big old nubs on the end of their hands called gloves. And Ronda, I think, uses this glove better than anyone else to control the arm. So we're going to kind of revisit this topic when we're talking about how she likes to separate hands from spiderweb. But you could see here, she just has a very tight grip around her opponent's wrist, and that glove makes it very hard for her opponent to slip the elbow out. So you can see she has this very tight grip around that wrist, and she uses that to progress to mount. Now she also does this in judo, but in judo it's a little easier for her opponent to slip that arm, as you see here, because there's no glove on the end. So when we're talking about jiu-jitsu purposes, we might have to use more robust grips like kimuras to secure that arm, right, and go into the finish. So just keep that in mind. And I think one interesting thing that Ronda talks about is how her mom pushed her in judo to go for arm lock finishes as opposed to strangles. And the reason behind this was that they're very quick, right? In judo, everything's fast paced and you only have a certain amount of time to finish your opponent on the ground. So an armbar makes sense in that scenario. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, you often hear people say, you know, there's no tough guys when it comes to chokes and everybody goes to sleep. So in jiu-jitsu, it tends to favor chokes because it's less time restrictive, right? But I think this armbar mentality transitioned well into the UFC because of the glove to make rear naked chokes more difficult, right? A lot of fighters kind of settle with this like support hand on top of the head here instead of hiding that hand behind their opponent's head. Because you have a big old glove, it's hard to finish in that traditional way. Or they go palm to palm, right? So the gloves kind of make rear naked chokes more difficult to achieve, but they make arm bars easier. And I think Ronda used that very well to her advantage. So another thing to consider is just Ronda is a freak athlete, right? And she has a crazy ability to get her hips behind her opponent's shoulder, which is what you need for an armbar. And there's a couple of situations like we see here where they're kind of scrambling and she ends up with her hips behind her opponent's shoulders. But we're not going to focus on those setups as much. We're going to focus on her classic setup from the turtle position. So there are a couple of scenarios like we see here where she sits directly for the armbar from mount, but the majority of her setups come from turtle. And the way she sets it up is she punches her opponent a few times to get them to turn belly down. From that belly down position, she hugs with the north arm. So if I rewind this a little bit, right here, you can see if we're using her opponent's head to signify the north position and her feet to symbolize the south, you could see Ronda likes to hug with the arm that's closest to the head, which is the north arm, right? This would be the south arm because it's close to the feet. The arm close to the head would be the north arm. Ronda pretty much always hugs with the north arm. So when she hugs, she rolls her opponent over into that spiderweb position. So this is the one scenario that I saw where Ronda did hug with the south arm. You can see she's hugging with this arm here, as we let this play a little bit. And in this scenario where she hugged with the south arm, she actually rolls her opponent the other direction. So there is a scenario where she does hug with south arm, but the majority of her cases, she hugs with the north arm. And I think this scenario here is the most advanced sequence that I've seen from Ronda in rolling her opponent over to spiderweb. And I just don't think she ever had to use this in the UFC because she was so far ahead of her time. But in this situation, she creates a dilemma with her opponent. So you can see she hugs with that north arm, she brings that cross face leg in, and she threatens to bring her opponent back this way. What's her opponent going to do? Her opponent's going to drive down, right, to prevent herself from being turned this way. And Ronda's goal to turn her opponent over is to create a parallel relationship between their two bodies, right? Right now they're very perpendicular. In order to turn her over, Ronda needs to create a parallel relationship between their bodies. So by her opponent driving into her to prevent that crossface leg from turning her over this way, it allows Ronda to access that leg over here to create that parallel angle and turn her over. So that dilemma is very, very smooth to create that exposure to the spiderweb position. So now we have to untie the knot, right? And like we talked about earlier, Ronda, better than anyone else, uses that nub on the end of her opponent's hand to finish the arm lock. You can see here, it's just elbow deep around that glove. So pretty much regardless of any grip, she uses the same strategy where she goes north arm and she tries to go elbow deep as high up closest to the glove as possible. Once she gets that, she falls slightly to the north side and then extends the arm. She does this in judo as well. So the one scenario where I found that she hugged with the south arm was also the coolest one as well. And we're going to look at that here. So you can see she's kind of struggling to untangle the hands here, right? She's kind of peeling at the grip, but she uncrosses her legs and heists up using this leg here. Now, this was the anchor for her opponent's hand, right? So she removed that crossface leg and used it to bring her body weight on top of her opponent. And it exposes that glove right here to be grabbed. Now, her north arm is currently occupied, right? It's hugging the arm. So now she's going to take her south arm and she's going to grab that glove elbow deep. Now, when she flips her crossface leg back over, she's going to transition back to that north arm hug, fall slightly to the north side, and extend that arm. So now bringing it all together, her classic entry is punch your opponent a few times, hug with the north arm, create that parallel relationship between their bodies to roll them over to spiderweb, hug elbow deep by the wrist, fall slightly to the north, and extend the arm. So hope you guys find that video helpful. Thank you, Phred, for the comment, and we'll see you next time.